So this man is walking down the street. This man is walking down the street, and all of a sudden he falls into a hole. The hole is so deep that he struggles and he can't find his way out of the hole. And suddenly, a doctor walks by and he says, "Hey, doc, I'm stuck in this hole. Can you help me?" So the doctor writes him a prescription and throws it down into the hole and keeps going. And this guy is starting to become despondent, starting to experience a lot of despair while stuck in this hole. And all of a sudden, a spiritual advisor walks by. A rabbi walks by, not Rabbi Jack. Another rabbi walks by. And he says, hey, Rabbi, I'm stuck in this hole. Can you help me? I don't know how to find my way out. So the rabbi writes him a prayer and throws it down into the hole and keeps going. And this guy is starting to feel a lot of despair and doesn't know what to do while he's stuck in this hole. And all of a sudden, his friend walks by. And he says, hey, to his friend, it happens to be in the story, the friend's name is Jack. Hey, Jack, I'm stuck in this hole. Can you help me? And all of a sudden, Jack jumps into the hole with him. And he says, you're crazy. Now we're both stuck in this hole. What are we going to do? And Jack says, yes, but I've been in this hole before, and I know the way out. Now, the story resonates with me in many ways. One, it's because it's a story from my favorite TV show of all time. It's called The West Wing. It's written for that show, and it's written from a place of mental health. But it also speaks to this idea that many people have found themselves in that hole, and many of us may have tips and tools how to help them out of that hole, and it could be our job or responsibility to help them with a little bit of that. I'll use that as a form of an introduction to myself and a little bit about me and who I am and why I'm here. My name is Elan. I prefer to go by that than anything else, but Elan Javarfard. I grew up actually in this area. I grew up in the Pico Robertson area. Went to undergrad while living in Israel and came back and did my graduate studies here in America. And I am a psychotherapist. What that means, if that sounds really chaotic, is I have a marriage and family therapy degree and a clinical degree in psychology as well. But I have a specialization. And my specialization in the area of focus I've usually spent most of my career in is suicide. It's not a fun thing to talk about at dinners. With people. It's not like a rah-rah discussion or topic, but there's a suicide prevention center that was founded here in Los Angeles County. It's actually a building that's not far from the Century City Mall, if anyone's seen it before. It's on Olympic and Century Park East. It's the company I work for the last 12 years. We operate the suicide hotline for the entire state of California, and we focus primarily on people who are at the edge of despair. Prior to getting married, a lot of the work that I did was actually going out on calls throughout the night. So I would have shifts from about 8 p.m. till 8 a.m., where if the police department or the fire department indicated that there was somebody who was in distress, like a person was on a bridge or a rooftop or on a billboard somewhere, that I'd go out and I'd have to stand there or sit there and talk to them and help them, literally talk them off of a ledge. So it wasn't uncommon to be finding myself much later than this at night, sitting somewhere on a bridge or a rooftop, or on a billboard, literally climbing up a billboard and sitting and talking to an individual. And while that's not the full discussion and topic that we have here for today, the idea of what gets a person to that place, but the title of what we had for today was Living Today Without Yesterday's Baggage. And I want to kind of frame that a little bit through a brief Jewish concept and tie it all together into hopefully a mental health space where many of us can walk away with just tangible tips on how to live our lives more effectively. So for those of us who are Sephardi or Edut Mizrahi coming from Middle Eastern backgrounds, right now in this period of time in the Jewish calendar, there's something that we do every morning. It's called Slichot. Slichot is in essence a additional, I would say, atonement/confessional that you're doing every single day as you prepare for Rosh Hashanah, which is coming in a few weeks from now. For some Sephardim, you get up really, really, really early in the morning, literally the crack of dawn. I wake up at 4:45 in the morning for the last 2 weeks. I will be up at 4:45 tomorrow morning, regardless of what time we finish tonight, to be ready to be there at 5:10 to do this prayer. Now, what's interesting about Slichot is there's actually a line in it that is, in my mind, one of the kind of pinnacle climactic lines in this prayer that many of us know, and you definitely know it if you've been to any Jewish event in your life in the last 2 years, any kind of celebration event. It's a song that people sing. And you go to many events, and there's this song that's sung. It goes something along the lines of this. Hashem melech, Hashem malach, Hashem yimloch le'olam va'ed. Now, most people know and have heard that song. Now, it's one of the most important points in this slichot. It's like a part that everyone's standing and everyone's chanting together, and it's a part of the prayer process that you do on Yom Kippur and Rosh Hashanah pretty frequently as well. But what's interesting is that not many of us, even us who may study Jewish literature, actually have sat and looked at and thought to themselves, like, what does this prayer actually mean? What are these words and what am I saying? So I'll translate it for you, and it's very basic and simple. Hashem Melech is God is the king. Hashem Malach, God has always been the king and was the king. And Hashem Yimloch Olam Ved, and God will always reign in his kingdomhood in the future. Now, there are classic Jewish literatures that ask a very basic question and say the order of tenses is wrong in this. It goes present, past, future. That doesn't make sense chronologically. It should be something along the lines of past, present, future. So it's out of order the way it was written. And I want to use that as a foundational point to the discussion of what I want to address this evening, which is really a weird thing to tangent from that really nice Jewish song into depression and anxiety. Within the Jewish population, there is research that indicates what the levels of depression are and what the levels of anxiety are, particularly amongst young adults, which is defined in this as 18 to 35, which I think is kind of the age range of what you guys define it as. I'm technically aged out of that age range. I feel a little proud that I'm considered not to be a young adult anymore. I'm a father with 3 kids, so hopefully that's fine. But youngish, yeah. I mean, 35 is when you're old enough to run for president. I don't know if that means a lot, but like that's a metric at 35. So approximately 10 to 15% of women at any point in time in their life will meet criteria for a depressive disorder. Approximately 5 to 10% of men will also, at some point in time in their life, meet criteria for a depression disorder. And for anxiety, it's women get the prize. It's about 25% of women at any point in time in their life will meet criteria for an anxiety disorder, and men's a little lower. Men's closer to about 15%. I've done some of this discussion before for other people, particularly at a women's shiur at a shul, and somebody asked me, why are the rates so much higher for women than for men? And the basic, easy answer to that question is men are so oblivious of their emotions that they don't even have the point to get to the place to get diagnosed. So it's not like they don't have the problems too. Women are just more intelligent emotionally, so they know there's a problem, so they go and meet somebody who tells them there's a problem. Men are like so far behind that they can't even realize that there's a problem for them to get diagnosed. So the rates are probably comparable, but anxiety is a little bit higher in women, and there's a lot of reasons for that. There's hormonal reasons, there's genetic reasons, and there's long-term disposition reasons for that as well that we won't necessarily get into for the purposes of this tonight. But the particularly important part that I want to address related to that information is this basic tenet and idea that many people, regardless of age, are going to experience high levels at some point in their life of some kind of sadness or depression and some kind of anxiety or some kind of angst or worry as well. And the challenge really is that we live in this massive age of distraction. We live in this age of social media. We live in this age of instant gratification, read replies. We are able to get feedback so quickly on information. We're able to get so much information thrown at us so quickly. And the sharpest paradox that many of us don't realize is the more our ability to remain present in our life and focused in the moment, the more successful our lives will be in the long term. So I want to do a quick, brief clinical exercise with you guys in the room, and hopefully people in the room are comfortable enough to raise their hand and give an answer to this. What I want you to think about for a quick moment is, I want you to picture time as on 3 points of a triangle. So no one told you there was going to be math tonight, but there's a little bit of math here. Picture time as 3 points on a triangle. think to yourself for a moment, if you're visualizing time as a triangle, how much time do you as an individual spend focused on the past? How much time do you as an individual spend focused on the present? And how much time do you spend focused on the future? So if you were to like picture this out, because why not? I have paper in front of me. Past, present, future. So imagine like a triangle with how much time are you spending focused on the past? How much time are you spending focused on the present? And how much time are you spending focused in the future? Divide that up by 100. So take 100%. You won't get judged if you're off by a few percentage points. But take a moment and really think about this. And I want you to think about what I'm sharing with you while you posit this idea. If you are in a couple currently, or if you're seeking to be in a couple, this exercise will be very revealing and very supportive of that experience. If you are actively in a couple and you're struggling to identify where some of the challenges within your couple may be, this exercise may also be supportive. If you are currently feeling like you are not in your body and not in this room and missed half of what I've said so far, this exercise will be very supportive for you. So take a moment and again, think of time, 3 points on a triangle. What % of time do you spend focused on the past? What % of time do you spend focused on the present? And what % of time do you spend focused on the future? And if anyone in the room is comfortable enough to break the ice and raise their hand, I promise to not diagnose you, label you, or judge you. Start with you in the back.
I think at least 100%.
100% in the future. Thank you for having 1% of present ability to say that to me. So 1 now, 99 future. Yeah, go ahead. You, and then we'll come over here. Yeah.
I'd say probably 20% of the past.
Okay.
And then 60% in the present, because a lot of it is what's going on right now, doing things, solving problems, you know? And then 20% planning for what's next.
Okay. 20, 60, 20. Okay. I'm going to go with you last. There was a hand here. Yeah.
I think I would say like 50% focus on the past, 25 present, 25 future.
50% past, 25 present, 25 future.
Yes.
Great. Okay. Can we just break the gender barrier here and get some women to be willing to raise their hands? 2 in the back. Start with you.
Can I copy his answer because I was trying to
Sure.
figure out for myself, so I would say 50, 25, 25.
50 in the past, 25, 25. In the corner?
I would say I'm 65, you're not the guy, 65 past.
Okay.
I would say 20% present.
Okay.
65, and the rest future.
Okay. I'll do the math-ish for you. It's about 34% future then. Go ahead.
10 past, 60 present, 30 future.
10 past, 60 present,
Yeah,
30 future.
yeah.
Okay. Anyone else? Want to give us right there?
50% present,
Okay.
30% past, and then 20% future.
Got it. Okay. So even if you didn't raise your hand, I do want you to take a moment and actually think of numbers for yourself. Really, like, take a moment. If you're even willing to or comfortable doing this, write your numbers down for yourself. Like, put it on your phone or something along those lines. Last one, my brother. I'm literally going to write this down. Go ahead.
I would say 20% past,
Okay.
40% future,
Okay.
and 20% present.
Okay. 20.
40, 20.
Okay. It's not a math major. None of us are math majors. That's our older brother. He's an accountant. Our older brother's an accountant. Odpam. Odpam.
Let's try again. 30% present,
Okay.
20% past,
Okay.
that's 50. 50%.
50% future. Okay. Toda rabba. Thank you very much. Okay. Like I said, only our older brother is the math major. Okay. So I am going to share with you, based off of 8 years of research and multiple research papers, what a optimal answer is, what a normative, acceptable, comfortable answer is, and what it then means. I'm going to posit this with a few caveats. One is, this is not a diagnosis, this is not a label. It's supposed to be a flag to help guide you, or a GPS to guide you towards tools or tangible tips that may be able to actually help you related to this. Okay? So the optimal ideal percentages are 15% in the past, 15% in the future, and 70% in the present. 15%, that's 30, 70 in the present. 15, 15, 70 equals 100.
Based off what research?
I'm going to give you that in 1 second. Let's add two elements to this that are really important for this room as well. The younger you are going to skew a little bit more towards the future. And the older you are, you're going to skew a little bit more towards the past. And that roughly is about a 10% skew that can happen. So what that also means is that while that's the optimal, the normative, the comfortable, the sweet spot is 25% past, 25% future, 50% present. So that your present is equal to or higher than your past and your future. I'll pause for a moment to say that again. So that your present is equal to or higher than your past and your future. Now, the research behind this is over 240,000 people doing this type of exercise related to several other clinical batteries that are going into experiences of depression, experiences of anxiety, and multitude of research-based books on what's called optimal flow.
To find what batteries are?
Yes. Thank you for the clinical psychologist in the room. These are outcome measures, questionnaires. You ever go to the doctor and they give you a sheet of paper that has questionnaires on it and asks you different questions about your health, your history, whatever it is? This is outcome questionnaires, or what we call batteries, which are done given by therapists to people to learn a little bit more about their daily quality of life, their symptoms, their anxieties, their all those kinds of things. There's also research done that's about this idea that many of us experience once in a while in our life. It's called flow. You ever have a day where everything just clicks? Like you just feel like everything is like rhythmically in order and like it just feels good. Like you wake up and things are in order and they're right. The next thing is right. The next thing after that. And maybe for some people that only happens for a few days. Maybe you have that even for half of a day. Like not that many people are in that like optimal zone for extended periods of time in their life. But there's a book that was written by a researcher out of India, and he spent a lot of time trying to help people get into the state of flow. And based off of a lot of his research as well, he suggested a similar thing. But what I want to share with you before we go down that road is this really brief informational piece on what it means if your answers were very past focused and what it means if your answers were very future focused. So for those, regardless of where you put your answers, I'll read this to you, because it comes out of the research as well. So past-focused individuals in general are sentimental people. They have a keen memory of past events. They may appreciate history, genealogy, scrapbooking, something along those lines. But if they have an unhealthy focus on the past, they're going to carry the weight of unresolved conflicts, the weight of past traumas, past fears around with them. They can experience depression. They can harbor resentments, carry a lot of guilt, lack a lot of goals or energy to do their goals, the kinds of people who can bring past arguments up in current times frequently. And these people, if they become entrenched too much in that, they can start to experience some debilitating mental health challenges. Future-focused individuals tend to be people who are multitaskers. They're natural planners. They're the natural kinds of people who manage things a lot. They ultimately take on a lot more responsibility than they can handle. And they find themselves starting a lot of things and not finishing a lot of those things. These people can inadvertently say things or do things that cause other people to feel inadequate in their lives. And these people can easily get distracted. They're susceptible to a lot of worry, anxiety, sleep disturbances, and burnout. Now, according to the research, what it then says is people who experience excessive focus on the past have a high susceptibility for depression, for anger, and substance issues. And people who have a high excessive focus on the future increases their likelihood of experiencing anxiety, purposelessness, and eventually suicidal ideation. And that's where I came in. So when you take a look, when you listen to that concept of just a little image of these two people, And think about the numbers that you either shared or you wrote for yourself. And think about yourself. If you were a very heavily past-oriented person, is it possible that sometimes things weigh you down a lot longer than they may weigh other people down? If you're a past-focused individual, are you bringing up past arguments more frequently or feeling guilt and shame around things that have happened in the past and remembering that time in 3rd grade when that thing happened more than everyone else? And future-focused for those people, did you easily find yourself getting really, really excited about a bunch of ideas to not finish all those things? Do you find yourself taking on a lot more than you can handle and saying to yourself, I need to push, I need to push. This is my time that I have to push and make it, and find yourself burning out or getting overwhelmed with that amount of stuff? Do you find yourself experiencing anxiety or getting to a place where you have like decision paralysis, where you have so many decisions to make that you're struggling to be able to make any decision, including something as small as what should I eat for dinner tonight? That is anxiety. Now, the reason I share this is not to make you anxious or to bum you out and depress you, but it's to share with you that the tool to getting towards a more effective pathway to addressing all of this is really within the exercise itself, which is the more time we can spend being present focused, the more we can live a life that's worth living. There's a clinical psychologist who created a therapeutic model. It's called dialectical behavioral therapy. If you've ever heard of therapy, you've heard of DBT. Marsha Linehan, who's the founder of DBT, she created this model, dialectical behavioral therapy, and her personal memoir, her own book that she wrote about her own experience making a suicide attempt, having a personality disorder, and realizing how her treatment was so lacking, it drove her to become a clinical psychologist who revamped the entire field of mental health. Her book is called A Life Worth Living, and the concept very much fits with the first book that drove me towards interest in the field of mental health, and it's called A Man's Search for Meaning. I don't know if anyone's heard this book before, and if you haven't, it's a phenomenal read for anyone who's interested in anything semi-clinical or fascinating, but also Jewish at the same time. A Man's Search for Meaning is a book written by a psychiatrist named Viktor Frankl. Viktor Frankl was a psychiatrist in World War II prior to the Holocaust, and he writes a book. First half of the book is his experience living through the Holocaust, and the second half of the book is his psychological perspective on the world based off of seeing the Holocaust and living and experiencing the Holocaust. And what it boils down to is he says, similar to what Marsha Linehan is saying, is that any person who can identify in their life some kind of thing that they can tether to, some meaning in their life, they can really experience and overcome any kind of challenge in their life. And it's very much like a quote that is oftentimes attributed to Nietzsche, which is something along the lines of, if you have a why in your life, you will be able to overcome any how or what in your life. The idea there is that if you have something that makes you feel really alive or tethered to reality, then the past isn't going to hold you down as much, and the future isn't going to hold you down as much either. These are these concepts that are really important. And because the title we had for today was living today without yesterday's baggage, I thought up a few really fascinating mental health quotes that I thought would really resonate with us as a group, and also something that I've used in work frequently in the work that we've done. And one of those that I really think is a fascinating one for this particular topic is that for those of you who experience a little bit of that baggage related to depression, not everything that weighs you down is yours to carry. Not everything that weighs you down is yours to carry. Not everything that has been stuck with you, not everything that you've held on to, not everything that's come with you is yours to need to continue to hold on to and carry. And a really fascinating way to think of this for a moment, because I'm going to assume, based off of some of the similarly melanin-colored faces in the room, there are people in this room who are Persian. Anyone else other than me Persian? Anyone here speak Farsi? Now you're willing to raise your hands. Okay, thank you. Okay. So in Farsi, can someone who speaks a little bit of Farsi do this for me? In Farsi, what is the word for pain? Thank you. Dard. Sorry for all of you other ones for a moment. In Farsi, it'll make sense. In Farsi, the word for pain is dard. Now, if a person experiences pain, what do you say in Farsi? What do you say when you want to say to somebody, I am in pain? Dard daram means I have pain. Pain is real. Pain is something that happened. I hit my foot against the wall. I stubbed my toe. Dard daram. My foot hurts right now. Okay. Now, in Farsi, how do you say the word for suffering? Anyone? Thank you. Zaj. Zaj means suffering. Now, if I want to say to somebody, I'm experiencing suffering, how do you say I'm having suffering in Farsi? Zaj mikesham. I'm going to translate that for you for those of you who don't speak Farsi. It translated as I'm experiencing suffering. I'm in pain. I'm suffering. But in reality, the translation in Farsi is Zaj mikesham, which means I am pulling suffering along with me. That's the translation. If you think about it in Farsi, that's the translation. I'm pulling suffering. Pain is real. Pain is something that happened to you. Suffering is the meaning that you made of the pain. No one makes you suffer. No one in life makes you suffer. Suffer is the meaning that you put on the pain. I hurt my toe hurts, I'm in pain. If I call myself stupid for stubbing my toe, I'm suffering, but I am the cause of my suffering. No one else causes you to suffer. And in Farsi, the beautiful nuance of that language in this sentence is that the way to get rid of suffering is literally let go of the baggage. It's not yours to carry. You don't need to carry suffering with you. Pain is real. Suffering is something that you are choosing for yourself. And it's a very hard concept to resonate with, especially if you as a person have been hurt before. If you've been hurt by somebody, if you've been betrayed by somebody, if you've been kind of humiliated, or you've been put out on display in some way, that all you can think about to yourself is, this person did this to me. They hurt me. And that's true. That pain is real, and no one can invalidate that pain. But the perpetuation of that and taking that into every next relationship, into every next conversation, into every next space, that person is literally holding you by a leash, and you're giving them that leash and letting them control you. That is suffering. That is the idea of not everything that's yours, not everything that weighs you down is yours to carry. Now, with the past isn't for you to visit. You do need to learn from the past. You do need to get a lot from the past. I did a lecture over Shabbat. It was called The Power of Regret, where we looked at the difference between the most two Jewish emotions on the planet, guilt and shame. And we talked about the difference between those two things and where they come from. And what we discussed there was that the past is meaningful. The past is powerful. You need the past to help springboard you to the future. And what resonates with me related to that is that the past should be a place of reference in your life, but it should not be a place of residence. The past should be a place of reference, but not a place of residence. You should not live there. You should not spend your time in that space, because all you will find in that space is negative things that confirm what you already feel about yourself. The past is not there to help shape your future to be better. The past is there to warn you and make sure you don't fall down the same problems you did in the future. Now, on the opposite end of that spectrum, for those of us who experience anxiety occasionally, and anxiety is something that may be a very common friend to a lot of us, especially as Jewish people too. The one that I really appreciate a lot is that people become attached to their burdens, sometimes again, more than their burdens are attached to them. You start to feel more connected to your problem than your problem is actually connected to you. So this idea of I'm a certain age and I'm not married, I'm a certain age and I don't make a certain amount of money, that's your burden, you're carrying that, but that's attached to you in a small way. You're the one who's dragging that along. In every conversation you go into, in every business venture you go into, in every first date you go into, all you're bringing with you is, but what if this one doesn't work out too? And if this one doesn't work out, then I'm going to have to be 40 and I'm going to have to go back to Shabbat dinner at my grandma's house, and she's going to have to look at me and say, why are you not married yet? And that's what you bring into every single first date and every single first opportunity or first challenge or first thing that's in front of you. All of the anxiousness of the future. And what's poetic and sad about the future in many ways is that you need anxiety and you need the future, because anxiety is the price we pay for the ability to imagine the future. So the downside is anxiety as we know it, but the upside is you get to imagine the future. I had lunch today with a friend and we talked about what would we do if we won $100 million. We saw a thing on the side that said whatever the lottery was. After doing the math on how much you'd actually get, we decided it wasn't worth it to buy a ticket because it's only up to like 400 million. I'll wait till it gets to $1 billion. By the way, all of us do that. I don't know why. It doesn't make any sense. Like a 400 million wouldn't change your life, but you'll wait till it hits $1 billion and then you'll buy a ticket. But like the anxiety that we face now is the price that we pay for being able to like actually enjoy and appreciate that future piece as well. Now, a lot of this is a little bit of a bummer to some capacity, but I want to deal with and get to the root cause and what you can do about it. So as I mentioned, I'll go back to this beginning pasuk that I shared, this paragraph that I shared, but I also want to juxtapose that with a really amazing encounter I had not long ago. Not long ago, I got the opportunity to meet with who I would define as like one of the chief Sephardi rabbis in the entire world. So many of us may be familiar with who Rav Avadia Yosef is. He's a big chief rabbi, previous chief rabbi in Israel, a Sephardi rabbi, and his son, Rabbi Yitzchak Yosef, is the person who's put out a lot of his writings and a lot of his books and a lot of his tapes, and he's a very big powerhouse figure in the community. And I said to him, I had the opportunity to have a private audience with him for a few minutes. I've been going back and forth to Israel doing treatment for Nova Festival survivors and doing some EMDR work with them in Israel, but I got the chance to meet with him. And I asked him, what would you tell somebody, or what support could you give me to tell somebody who is actively on the verge of maybe wanting to die or suicide? And the first thing he said was, it's not my field. That's not my area. And I said, okay, like theoretically, what is something that you would say? And he said, I'm not a counselor, and I know that in that moment, counseling isn't necessarily what would be helpful. But what I would point you to, he said, I'd point you to go look in this paragraph, in this passage within the Torah. He said, he pointed me to literally last week's Parsha, Torah portion, Parshat Shoftim. He pointed me to that and he said, go look in Parshat Shoftim, go look at this passage there. And this passage there says, Tamid yeh im Hashem Elokecha. Always constantly be with your God. And he said, go look at the commentary on that passage. And I smiled to him right away, and his response to my smile, I think he picked up. I think he has a little bit of like that ESP where he knows what's going on in your brain. But his response to my smile was like, "Ata makir et zeh?" Like, do you know that paragraph, that passage? I said, yeah, I do, and I know what you're referencing. And he said, like, and then he like was looking for why I referenced it, and I said, it's my bar mitzvah parsha, so I know what you're picking and referencing to. What he's referencing, and I'll share it with you before I tell you what he said, what he's referencing to is that juxtaposed between a story of different sins that Jewish people can experience or things that we shouldn't do, what's happening there is the Torah is sharing and telling a little bit about that there will eventually be people who are magicians or people who have magical kind of black magic powers or something along those lines. And what it says is, don't go chasing after soothsayers. Don't go chasing after fortune tellers. Don't go chasing after palm readers. Don't go chasing after all those people. It says, Tamid yeh Hashem Elokecha. Always be with your God. So on there's a commentary, and that commentary says right away, what he's saying, this pasuk is saying, this paragraph is saying, is don't go looking at the future. Stay in the present with God, and if you stay in the present with God, you won't need to go look in the future. I understood what he meant. What he was saying was that somebody who's experiencing a high level of suicidality is really constantly looking at the future and thinking the future is terrible and awful, and therefore I'm going to make a terminal decision that's going to do something that I can't overcome and I can't override because the future looks so bad and so awful. And when I said to him, I know that pasuk and that resonates. Thank you. That shares with me. And then I said to him, because it's my bar mitzvah parsha. So his response back to me was, so you now know what your mission in life is. So in Hebrew, it's very powerful. But what he said back to me is, if that's your bar mitzvah parsha, that was perfect timing for that song to go off. It's like, I know my mission. You know your mission in life because your literal bar mitzvah parsha is the parsha in which I'm pointing you to say that this is the advice you should be giving someone who is on that edge or sitting on that ledge. Now, getting that from Rav Yitzchak Yosef, who, like, it kind of makes you, like, shiver and shake in the experience. But what he's saying really is the key to the clinical piece of what I want to discuss here, too. That original paragraph, that original passage we mentioned of Hashem Melech, Hashem Yimloch Olam Va'ed, which says, God is our king, God was our king, and God will be our king, makes sense. It has to be in that order. It has to be present first. It has to be present first, because if he's not your God now in this moment, and if you don't believe in him now in this moment, then it doesn't matter that he was yours previously. It doesn't matter that he will be yours in the future. You have to be with him first now, accept him now, believe now, live in the now. And once the now is good, then worry a little bit about the past. Then worry a little bit about the future. And why, separate maybe for Rabbi Jack, but why the second part should be past is because we're people of faith and tradition. If we're not tied back to the people who came before us, if we don't go all the way back to I'm a Kohen, for example, which means that some point in time in my genealogy, at some point in time, there was a person who was serving, korbanot on the mizbeach. There was a Jewish person who was standing there making a decision of like which lambs can be eaten or can't be eaten, because we have a tradition. So past comes next because it ties us back to the past before us. What I wanted to share with you is like an ending piece, and then I definitely want to take questions because I am certain that people in this room think I diagnose them. Is going to be brief, quick tips to help you get to what is called present focus. It's not a large thing. It's not a big thing you have to do. And many of us think that a lot of these things are like life-changing things. I'm not going to tell you to, drop out of your work and go join a Soul Cycle class and like sit there and spin in the moment, because that is also not helpful either. But I want to share three really brief tips to become present focused. So one is called taking micro mindfulness breaks. So many of us think of like self-care, taking care of ourselves, as this big thing that we do. Like we take off a week from work, we take off a few days to recover, all those kinds of things that we do. But in reality, the people who wait till they get to their vacations are usually burnt out by the time they get to their vacation. I don't know if anyone other than me has ever experienced this, but the 4 days before a vacation are the most stressful work days ever. You then go on a vacation, and your first few days of vacation are so stressful because you haven't let go of what you were dealing with. And then you have to go home, and then you have to prepare for being back at work, and it's like, when did you actually vacate? The same goes for the weekends, by the way. The same goes for the weekends. If you spend your life thinking that the weekend is going to be the only time that restores you, then Saturdays are just decompressing from Monday through Friday. And for all of us who are a little bit anxious, like myself, Sundays are preparing for Monday. Like you got to go grocery shopping and meal prep and all that kind of stuff. So if both of those days are taking care of the week, when did you actually have a weekend? When did you actually have a weekend? Now in Jewish tradition, and there's actual really great, strong research about this, and maybe you have your Shabbat dinners here, you should put this up on a wall somewhere. There's research that shows that people who do Shabbat, and it doesn't mean Shabbat in the sense of you unlock and turn your phone off and all electronics for 25 hours, but the idea of just taking 25 hours away to eat with friends, be with people, restore, recover, and not focus on the mundane is antithetical to depression. There's a research article from people in Japan. It has nothing to do with Jews. It was not done by Jews. Japanese researchers who looked at and studied concepts that can actually help minimize depression. And they found this idea of what they called a unplugged day, which they're like, who unplugs for 1 day a week? Well, Jews do it. What is that? Shabbat. And it's antithetical to depression. Now that's something that all of us can think about in terms of something that's small that we can do. But micro breaks are something along the lines of this. Finding in your calendar, in your day, 2 to 3 times a day where you take 1 to 3 minutes to just focus on yourself and nothing else. No device, no pamphlet, no paper, no TV, no nothing. 2 to 3 minutes, 1 to 2 times a day. It could be right before you go to sleep at night. It could be right before you wake up in the morning.
Before?
Right, thank you. Right after you wake up in the morning. It could be either of those two things. It could be either of those two things. You take a few moments for yourself without a device in your hand, and you actually focus and take time to take a mental restoration break. It was what was on my mind was a separate thing, which was that if your phone is the last thing you touch before you go to sleep at night, like it's in your hand as the last thing, and it's the first thing you touch when you wake up in the morning, you need a date. No, you have a problem with cell phones? You have a problem with cell phones? It's really what it is? You need someone. You need human contact. Your cell phone is a whole other problem that you could experience there as well. But the idea there is that if you take a few moments to yourself and just really focus on, maybe do a little bit of breathing, do a little bit of something to focus and calm yourself, that is really going to be supportive. The other tip, which is a very hard one for me and maybe hard for many of you who are a little bit anxious and future-oriented, is at least a few times a day, if not a few times a week, don't multitask. At least a few times a week, actively choose not to multitask. Find a task, something that you're passionate about, and tell yourself, I'm just going to do this. Just going to focus on this. So whether it's with your free time, whether it's with your work time, whether it's in one meeting, whether it's one lunch, whether it's one date, all you're going to do is turn your phone off, turn off all your wearable items as well, and just focus your attention on that and see the difference it makes in that actual experience. Yes, multitasking is needed at times. You do need sometimes to do a few things, and some people can do it better than others. Some people can't multitask at all but think they can. Most people actually can't, according to research. It's not a real thing for most people. There are a few people who can do two things and process two pieces of information simultaneously. And if you think you are that person and your life is not way successful, you're wrong. So take a few moments and actually focus on one task and don't focus on multitasking. And the last one is what's called anchor activities. Anchor activities means do a few things throughout the day, which you are also having specific tasks where you're going from start to finish before you move on to something else. For example, if you are eating a meal, just eat the meal. You don't have to watch TV while you eat. Most research suggests you end up eating more than you should anyways. I can't eat a whole box of pizza, but if I'm watching a basketball game, I'll crush 2 boxes. But if you sit down for a meal, anchor your activities. If you're going to go for a walk, listen to something and enjoy that experience and just do that. If you're going to eat, just do that. If you're going to watch something, just do that. You don't need to be on the TV and on Twitter on your phone and your computer out at the same time. Focus on one activity. Anchor yourself in just one present activity and see what that does for you. And I'll end with this, what I think is a really fascinating idea related to self-care and taking care of yourself, particularly for those of us in this room who struggle with that idea. Because there are a lot of people who struggle and say, I'm fine. Or like, I take care of myself better than other people. That doesn't necessarily mean you've taken care of yourself enough to the point where you actually get all your needs met really as well. And the analogy I will use is the analogy, and maybe many of you have heard this before as well, but it's the analogy of 2 lumberjacks. It's the story of 2 lumberjacks. Lumberjacks go out every single day at the exact same time. They go out and they chop wood. Day in, day out, they both go at the same exact time, and they both go and they chop wood. And in the middle of the day, one lumberjack leaves and takes a break. He walks away from work for an hour, and he comes back and he continues to chop wood. And day in and day out, the lumberjack who takes an hour off sees that he has much higher output of wood that he's chopped than the other lumberjack. Eventually, the lumberjack who's not taking a break just can't take it anymore. And he says to him, I don't understand. I work an hour longer than you every single day. I spend more time at work. I do all of this extra chopping. And in the end of the day, I always have less wood than you do. What gives? What are you doing with your hour that I'm not doing? What are you doing that's making your wood chopping better than mine? And the lumberjack who takes the break says, it's very simple. Every day I leave for an hour, I go home, and I sharpen my axe. Take a break. It allows you to restore yourself, be a better version of yourself, be a stronger version of yourself, be able to limit and pour a little bit less out of that cup. And when your cup is a little less full, you have more space to be more present. You have more space to be in that moment. You have more space to leave the anxiety where it needs to be in the future and worry about it when you get there, and leave the past where it needs to be and all those resentments and guilts and shame where it was as well. And really look at the moment in front of you and think to yourself that this moment that I have now, this fleeting moment that's the only thing that's really in control for me in this exact moment, it really, if I just look at this moment and not everything before it and not everything after it, is really amazing. It's really great. You're in a room full of a lot of other people, similar ages, like-minded individuals, all passionate and striving to grow and lead and get to a place that's higher than themselves. This exact moment in time, in this exact experience, what brought you here and what is going to be here when you leave may be things that you have to deal with and stress about and experience. But right now, while you're here, while you're with other people, in the moment that you have, that moment's never going to come. It's a fleeting moment. And if you live it and you experience it and you stay in this moment and this time, that becomes a really powerful moment, and it anchors you in the present, and it helps you be able to escape these things that really hold you down. Thank you very much for all your time. For anyone who's interested, I definitely would love to hear from you to see if you have any questions, but I also want to be mindful of whatever time I'm supposed to be over. Huh? That doesn't, I might just stay up at this point. Yes. Yes. Oh, before I forget, because my brother reminded me, I put a flyer on the table. A colleague of mine started a mental health nonprofit for Jewish people that offers affordable therapy. The sessions are around $50 a session, based off of your income and what's going on in your life. It's not the same cost as what therapy is, which is very expensive now, and that's a problem we're trying to solve. So if you're interested and you know somebody who wants Jewish sensitive mental health services, there's a flyer in the back, and he raised them, so I remembered that they're there if you want to grab one. But yes, go ahead.
So this is off of the point that you made about those I went on a walk today because I needed to take a break. This is a real story. I took my dog on a walk, okay? And as I was walking, I left my phone and I left my outlet too. Now, what's your tip for staying present, like when I do a walk or something of a break like that? Because I still felt like my wheels were spinning. So
You're right.
just starting to focus on, oh, that tree is green. Like, what's...
That's a very good question. So at first, when you do stuff like that, that's what you will experience. Your mind is not off yet just as fast as the items or devices you put down. Over time, your mind will start to diminish and start to actually experience. But what you can do is pick things for yourself and tether yourself to certain things. So that could be just saying, I'm going to go walk a different path today, so that if I'm taking a different path, a little bit more of my mental focus has to be on, well, like, this street's different. I need to know where I'm going and route myself. As compared to if you go on the same path every day, at a certain point, it becomes rote. Many of us as human beings, if you realize this or not, but like if they put footprint impressions on the bottom of your feet, you do the exact same thing within millimeters of each other every single morning when you wake up. It's just like at this point, it's rote. Like your body goes to the exact same place, it turns around the exact same place, and they've done this. They put like sensors and light sensors on people's feet to see it. So you do that, and that's why it doesn't turn off. But if over time you start finding different paths, you start to alter that. The other thing you could do is not the same as what you just said. I'm not saying like, wow, that's such a, like you're not like on MDMA to look at a tree. Like, but appreciate things. Go somewhere where you're gonna actually see something that you appreciate. If you ever had the experience to go on I don't know if anyone here has children or has nieces or nephews, but if you had the experience to go on a walk with them as compared to going on a walk with yourself and seeing life through their eyes, the things that they're fascinated by, the things that that they find fascinating, we only lost that as adults because we chose to lose that. That's not something that happened on its own. We actively decided to put our emphasis elsewhere. That fantasy and imagination is still inside you. You just have to take some time to start finding it and seeing where you can see that in the world as well. Yeah. Yes. Right there. Yes.
What, if, do you have a favorite breathing exercise? And if so, what is it?
Oh, wow.
Like, I'm tired of box breathing. Like, and I'll do like a hummingbird breath or like the 4, 7, 8.
If I had the time, I would have done my favorite breathing exercise, which is here in my notes somewhere, which is called My Brain and My Heart Divorced Today.
We should try it today, sir.
I don't have it here with me. It's my brother. It's called My Brain and My Heart Divorced Today. If you're aware of box breathing and those types of breathing, and none of that stuff is really as effective for you.
I'm just wondering what you see be effective and what you think.
Two things. One is a basic thing. One is called the double inhale. It's where you inhale completely and fully, and then you take a moment and you try to take an additional inhale in. So it looks something like, and then you let that out. So you're filling, you're out of your mouth, in through your nose, double inhale through your nose and out through your mouth. What you're doing is you're fully oxygenating yourself, and then you're adding an additional level of oxygenization. And by doing that, you're expanding the capacity in your lungs, but you're also rapidly de-escalating your nervous system. You're rapidly slowing down your nervous system to more of a steady place and a pause.
How many
That's
minutes would you do that one for?
5 minutes at the most.
Awesome.
5 minutes at the most. If none of that is something that's actively working for you frequently, one of the other suggestions I would make is if breathing isn't doing it for you, you're probably not getting enough sunlight to begin with. Because sunlight itself is very beneficial and has a lot of restorative power to it. So if you could figure out a way to do both simultaneously, like breathing exercises while getting your sunlight on a daily basis, that in itself can do a lot of power to kind of slow things down, restore your body the right level of melatonin it needs to be able to set your rhythm for sleep effectively and help with a lot of those symptoms too. Yes? Yeah?
Is there like a quick tip? I know it's a lot easier said than done, but to not be a victim to your feelings. Like if you know that you're like grieving or suffering, as you said, like is there something quickly that like other than realizing that you're doing it to like get you out of it?
Yes. Very easy tip. Experience the feeling fully. Many times when you experience a negative feeling or you start to feel something challenging, your natural inclination, especially for men, is to bottle it. Don't let yourself fully feel it. So if you're grieving, you're going to grieve 20% of the full percent you should have grieved. If you're anxious, you're going to experience it 20% of what you should have fully experienced it. You only let a little bit of it out. This is just more, it's general, but men do this a lot more. Instead of thinking of like, how do I overcome it? How do I succeed it? How do I knock it down? Feel it. Start there. You need to actually let yourself fully feel that feeling. If that means you need to cry, you need to cry. If that means you need to let an emotion out, you need to let an emotion out. On Thursday, I'm doing a lecture at a suicide conference. It's called Teaching Our Boys How to Cry. The idea is that men are taught at young ages that certain emotions are not accessible to them and they shouldn't show them because they're going to be weak. But what you learn is that if you don't fully experience the full emotion, you blunt it, and the more you blunt it and push it back down, it's going to eventually come out in the wrong places. So the first step is actually take the time to fully let out that emotion. For some people, we tell them, schedule time in your week to cry. Awesome. Put it on your calendar. Tuesday at 3, I'm going to cry. Believe me, there are people in this room that if you were told that do that and you were given 30 minutes and said sit down to cry, I guarantee they would be able to cry. Like it sounds strange, but schedule 30 minutes to be anxious. And be anxious about everything you need to be anxious. Schedule time to be sad. And fully experience that emotion and fully experience that feeling and then move on. Don't allow it to just come up when you're not in control of it. Take more control of it by doing that. Yeah?
With regard to the idea that suffering is oftentimes a choice, how does one know when to how do I know?
Like as if I didn't know anyways. You know?
How do I know when I'm realizing that the pain I might be struggling with is a result of sort of self-inflicted suffering, and if I should just simply drop that and pick myself up, or if that's indicative of me neglecting my emotions.
It's a very good question. It really depends on what those emotions are, A, and B, what the suffering is coming from. What I would say is that that's probably, to answer that, a longer question, but what my first response to that would be is similar to what we just said. If you fully have experienced that feeling and you fully feel like you've actually tried to let out that feeling, and that didn't work, and you're finding yourself still stuck in that space, and what that means to some capacity is you haven't accepted what you went through. And there's an opposite thing you can try, which is what's called opposite to emotion response. Just do the exact opposite of whatever you're feeling towards whatever that thing is. So the person you hate and they drive you insane, be kind to that person. There's a person who is selfish and takes from you, go out of your way to give to them. Do the opposite. By doing the opposite, you create this pathway towards feeling different about that experience or that person, and it forces you to try something different that might kind of break you out of that cycle. Yeah. Yes?
Something I know I personally struggle with, and kind of relating to what you said, asked about at the beginning of past, present, future. For me, I do most of my reflective thinking in the evening. It's just the way it works out. I don't know, it's my brain. But oftentimes it comes right when I'm getting into bed and the lights are off and I want to go to sleep. What would be a way to kind of shut that brain down? So, when your intention to go to sleep is at 10, not 1 a.m., you're able to go to sleep 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock as opposed to 1 a.m.
Sure. So what you're asking is, in essence, what we call sleep hygiene. Sleep hygiene. Let's start with a few things right in that moment, and then let's backtrack through the day briefly. First things first, don't be on any device in your bed ever. Your bed is where you sleep. Period. End of sentence. Your bed is where you sleep. You don't watch TV in your bed. You don't eat in your bed. You're not on your phone in your bed. Because if your body is realizing and learning that that bed is an opportunity for you to do a lot of other things, that's where those things will happen too. Your bed has to, don't be in your bed. So if your body is not ready to fall asleep, don't go to your bed and sit there and wait there aimlessly. First is make sure that you're doing a lot of this hygiene stuff to not find yourself in that space. It's one. Two, if the moment you put your head down and all of a sudden that is when you have all of these thoughts that are coming up, you're prepared for marriage. Because the moment you put your head down, that's when the person next to you is going to start asking you all the questions. It's a joke, but it's true. What it means is you didn't find enough resolution in your day, and you didn't feel accomplished enough to resolve something in your day, which deals with that leads to that experience as well. Just on this, because I think it's fascinating, there was a Corporal Marine Sergeant who gave the commencement speech at Marine Academy, and what he said was, everything I learned in the military could be summed up into one real small tip: make your bed every day. That was what he said. And what he said was that if you make your bed every single day, and you have a great day, or you have a terrible day, and you have all of these challenges or things that happen in your day, that regardless of how difficult and challenging that day was, at the end of the night when I put my head down, I'm putting my head down in a bed that was made. So even if I accomplished nothing today, I at least accomplished one thing. So if you're able to identify an accomplishment in each day and tether yourself to that, that makes it easier for you to fall asleep, because you can say, today was a good day, I did enough. If that doesn't work enough, what you really need to do, and this is part of what I have done for a long period of time until it got better for me, is a few minutes before I go to my room, before I go to bed, I write down every single thought that's in my mind. Like on my phone, or either type to text, or literally writing, I'll write all those things down. So like, I'm thinking about this, I'm thinking about this, I'm thinking about that, and I have to make sure I don't miss this, and I don't forget about that, and whatever it is, so that I don't find myself waking up at 3 a.m., standing up, being like, did I miss a flight today, or something like that? I have all of those things come out of my mind, and I put them on paper so that I can say to myself out loud when I'm spiraling in my bed, because I will, I can say to myself, but I already wrote that down, it's fine. Like, anxiety is useful. It's not a negative emotion. It's helpful. It actually drives you. So if it's trying to drive you and say to you, don't forget these things, or be mindful of these things, good. Use that. Write it down. Write it all down. Tell yourself you're going to get to it. And then tomorrow, actually get to it. So that the next night, you can say to yourself, remember, last night you did this and I still got everything accomplished? Stop bothering me tonight. And then you kind of deal with it in that way. And when you experience sleep hygiene in that way, you start to actually sleep a lot better. And you do need less sleep because your sleep is more productive. Whatever time it is I go to bed tonight, within 10 minutes, I'm going to be asleep. And I'm going to fall into REM pretty fast. And I'm going to get 5 to 6 hours. And that's going to be good because it's going to be good sleep. And that sleep I would take over 9 hours of somebody else's sleep where they're waking up 2 or 3 times in the middle of the night and they don't know why they woke up in the middle of the night. What he said, very lowly. Yes, sorry, before you, there was a question, there was a hand here. Yeah, go ahead.
You guys just talked about it, but what are your thoughts on journaling and how, like, you should be doing it? Like, should you be prompting? Do you find it helpful or effective to avoid rumination?
I think journaling is great for people who find it effective. So there's a little bit of a catch in there. Same as mindfulness. Mindfulness is effective, but if you don't believe that it can help you, it's not going to help you. So journaling is something that I do think everyone should do a little bit of, especially people who have like obsessive thoughts or thoughts that constantly run, or have an inner monologue, like people who like can hear their own voice in their head telling them things. By the way, 17% of the population doesn't have an inner monologue, and those people are probably sociopaths. But it's true, there are people who just don't have a thinking voice in their head constantly. Yeah, you say so. But I do think journaling is effective, whether you use journaling, whether you're doing journaling through prompted journaling or not. I would say it's probably a lot more effective if it's just you writing what you feel like writing rather than being prompted to write, because the prompt will shape your perspective. And doing it on your own is a little less of a shaping of a perspective. And there could be 2 parts to what you journal. It could be a little bit about what your day was like, but could also be a little bit about what you hoped to accomplish that you didn't, or what you accomplished and you're successful in feeling that you did that. So that it's not just like tailing off with negative, but it also has this aspirational piece for like tomorrow will be a better day in my journal too. But I do find writing to any capacity, including journaling, to be very, very restorative. Yeah. There was a hand in this area. I don't remember where it was. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, in regards to the triangle exercise, I have really 2 questions. What role do psychiatric medications play in moving around the percentages on triangle? And my second question is for like really extreme cases like domestic abuse survivors or like Vietnam War veterans or things like that. How are those people able to change the percentages around as well?
So surprisingly, psychiatric medication doesn't play that big of a factor. Psychiatric medication is helpful. Psychiatric medication is helpful for people who need it and truly need it. And psychiatric medication should be for people who have tried therapy, really tried therapy, and it didn't work, so they can add to therapy and make therapy better. It shouldn't be a first-line defense. You shouldn't just go get meds. You should actually do the work first and augment it with additional medication if needed. It will help you do the work to have your numbers changed. It's not going to just change your numbers for you. Like anti-anxiety, antidepressant medication doesn't make you not depressed. It makes you just not feel the depression. Anti-anxiety medication doesn't make you not anxious about the thing. It just allows you to feel nothing so you can do the thing. You're still anxious about airplanes when you're on an anti-anxiety medication. You just don't care because you don't feel it. So it doesn't change your numbers. It just numbs you to the experience in that space. But the people who've had horrific trauma, let's use the examples more recently, dealing with Nova Festival survivors and doing treatment and work with them. Their numbers are going to be very different than our numbers, understandably so. But it wouldn't surprise you that many of them, their numbers would be similar to what we've said in this room when they've experienced much higher levels of trauma, grief, experience, and whatever it may be. For them, a lot of that work is helping them also tether back to the present because they're so stuck in how challenging what I experienced in the future was, and what in the future was so challenging shapes what what the past was so challenging, it's going to shape what the future looks like. And for many people, it's about perspective. I don't know if anyone else other than me was there, but recently, I say a little less than a month ago, at Beth Jacob, shul not far from here, there was a hostage who was there, and he shared his story, Omer Shem Tov. He shared his story. He gave him an hour about sharing his story. And after that, I got a chance to meet with him and chat with him, and I asked him, like, where do you get your resilience? The word in Hebrew resilience is chosen. It's a great word. Where does your resilience come from? And his answer to that was, it's just a matter of perspective. I'm grateful, this is his words, I'm grateful that I was able to go through what I went through because there are many people I know who wouldn't have been able to come out on the other side. It's perspective. Now, is there trauma there? Is there grief? Is there loss? Is he still waiting on bated breath for friends that he knows that are still in there? Yes. But his perspective is a perspective of, I experienced pain. Pain is very challenging. Going forward, his way of sharing how he's able to overcome this is sharing his story, sharing how everything, and he starts his story by saying, I'm a free man, and he ends his story by saying, I'm a free man, because that's how he shapes the perspective. He's not shaped by what happened to him. He's shaped by who he is now. Perspective really matters when it comes to that. I'll literally end with this, and then I'll stick in the corner if people have other questions. What I want to do is just briefly, I'm going to ask somebody here to read this for a brief moment out loud and tell me what you think about it. Can I ask you to read this? Because you're just right here. So can you read this line by line out loud?
Sure.
So that like other people can hear it?
Yeah. Okay. Worst day ever?
Just the bottom part. That's fine. You don't have to read the top.
Today was the absolute worst day ever, and don't try to convince me that there's something good in every day, because when you take a closer look, the world is a pretty evil place. Even if some goodness does shine through once in a while, satisfaction and happiness don't last. And it's not true that it's all in the mind and heart, because true happiness can be attained only if one's surroundings are good. It's not true that good exists. I'm sure you can agree that the reality creates my attitude. It's all beyond my control, and you'll never in a million years hear me say that today was a very good day.
Okay. Worst day ever. Terrible perspective. There's all of this negativity that's going on within this space. Now, the challenge with that is that's a perspective that one person has on the world and what they're experiencing. I'm going to take the exact same paper. I'm going to give it back to you. I'm going to tell you, can you read it bottom up now? Start from this line and then go backwards up to the top.
Today was a very good day, and you'll never in a million years hear me say that it's all beyond my control. My attitude creates the reality. I'm sure you can agree that it's not true that good exists, only if one's surroundings are good. True happiness can be attained because it's all in the mind and heart, and it's not true that satisfaction and happiness don't last. Some goodness does shine through once in a while, even if this world is a pretty evil place, because when you take a closer look, there's something good in every day, and don't try to convince me that today was the absolute worst day ever.
She read the exact same paper, top to bottom twice. The perspective changed. She read it from top to bottom. She read it from bottom to top. The perspective you take of the world will shape. The perspective you take about what you're experiencing will shape how you feel. If your perspective is negative, if your perspective is there's something bad, I'm looking for bad, this is going to be a terrible day. I'm going to have a terrible time at this event. You're going to have a terrible time. But if you take the perspective and say, hey, this might be intriguing, this might be interesting, it's worth trying, I'm going to put myself out there, then maybe it will be more neutral. And if you take the perspective that says, I'm going to really try the best that I can to meet somebody new and have a great time. I'm going to really try the best that I can to just put all the things that I need to do for work aside and focus on enjoying this event, then maybe, just maybe, those things will be great too. Perspective matters. And I think that really speaks to it in a really fascinating way. So again, thank you. I'll stick around if you have any questions.